Hi and welcome to DEPHEMEREMBER, your daily ephemera inspiration in December. My name is Luise Heinzel and in collaboration with 49 Dragonflies, I'm going to show you some fun and easy ways to make your own junk journal ephemera out of basic supplies. Today's prompt is fabric and ledger paper. And here you can see some really big treasures from my stash. I've taken out some original ledger papers that I've collected over the past few years. So these are original papers from some ledger books. I need those today to have an imagination of an original ledger paper, and of course I also want to show you the original things that you can use in your junk journal if you have the possibility to get some of those papers. I know that the people overseas have a much easier job than the people in Europe to purchase some original ledger papers somewhere. So if you want to find some original ledger papers, you can use, for example, eBay to find some. I think there are some really cool people who sell those really old ledger books. But of course, I want to show you something that you can do if you don't have ledger paper or if you don't want to buy original ledger paper. So for today's project, I'm making my own artsy junk journal-y ledger paper out of some old school notebooks. What's the word? You see what this is. So this one where the writing is in comes from my time in school. My father has given this to me. He has collected all of this stuff from, my childhood days this is not from my childhood, actually. This is, I don't know. I really don't know, but what I want to say is these old things where you have written something with ink, of course, you can also use to make something interesting. I wanted to try this out since I had this paper here from my father. So I tried to spritz some water and Distress Oxide ink refiller mixed with water to get this brown and vintage look. And I just wanted to know what happens with this ink when it is wet. And I will let this air dry, and then later on I will put this into my project of today, even if this is not a typical ledger paper. But what I want to try to say and show you is use what you have. And if you have something, an old letter, for example, that's written with water-soluble ink, why not spritzing some mediums to it and make it into a piece of art and use it in your junk journal? Why not? I mean, use what you have. And even the things that perhaps seem to be not suitable, you can make them match to your project. But I also want to try to make a ledger paper out of this white paper and build up everything from this white page to my finished ledger paper later. I'm also using some Distress Oxide ink refiller with mixed with water, spritzing this to my whole page, and then I folded the page to spread this ink a little bit because I wanted to have something calm in this step, and I only wanted to imitate this old paper. This step, I think, has to be really controlled. That's also the reason why I'm trying to control this ink with my heat gun to get this feeling of a really old paper that's interesting but not too loud at the same time. When I put my other things on top later, I don't want this background to be too intensive. If you have used Distress Oxide ink, you can also do this little trick with some drops of water that I'm showing you here to make this whole thing a little bit more interesting and more vintage. Just spritz some drops of water to your paper, wait a few seconds, and then take a dry paper towel, place it on top of this whole thing, and lift the ink up. It depends to the paper how intensive this effect will be. In this case, I was really happy because it turned out really well and really, I mean, you can realize it really good that there are these lighter parts of the paper. In the next step, I've tried to spritz some more intensive brown things. I think that was not totally necessary, but of course I want to show you some variations, what you can do. Yeah, if you do it or not, please decide that by yourself. I think it's not so important. But important is this letter here. This is the next letter for the giveaway. If you perhaps are new to my channel and this is perhaps the first video that you are watching, then please check out the info box. All the information that you need to enter this giveaway is down below in the description box for you. And yeah, in the next step, I have chosen some red and blue pens from my stash, and I wanted to imitate these red and blue lines that you can find on a ledger paper. Here you can see this red line and the blue lines there in the other direction as well. I had a little problem to use my ruler on this crumbled paper. So I've decided that I will not try to get a really clear and crisp line with my pen, but as you can see, I have moved the pen around really loose to get some kind of an artsy junk journal line. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, of course you can do that in the way that you want it and as randomly as you like it. If you want to use some wet mediums for the next steps, then please decide if you want to make these blue and red lines with a water-soluble or a waterproof pen. Because when you make this now and you want to have this original optic, then use a waterproof pen so that you can make sure that the wet mediums later will not destroy your lines. I think that is the only thing that you have to think about before you start this, making these lines. And of course, you can also divide the paper into different sections like you want them. Here is the next letter for the giveaway. As I said, all the informations are down below in the description box. And here you can see me dividing this paper into into different sections. And now we can start to write on this paper. So on the top there was this little number on my original ledger paper, so I've tried to get this look here to my junk journal ledger paper as well. And as you can see, I scribbled this. I don't want to have a clear handwriting on my ledger paper. And another typical thing for this ledger paper is the writing, I mean the print, not the writing, sorry, that's not the right word, Louise. The printing and the different words that are printed to the ledger paper. This is a German ledger paper. It says soll and haben. Mixing English and German is not so easy. If you want to mix it, you can't mix it. If you don't want to mix it, you can be sure that you will mix it. Sorry. So I have stamped these words here with my letter stamps. Of course, you can also write that with your own handwriting or imitate a stamping or a print. You could also write the words that you can find on your original ledger paper with your computer and then print that out, cut it and glue it to your ledger paper. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to have a collage on my paper, but I want a flat surface of my paper. In the next step, I'm writing something here. And as you can see on the left side, I've already started that. I don't know why, but my camera stopped recording when I did that. So let me show you how I did this writing here. I've just scribbled around. I had some, this writing feeling in my head, but I haven't thought about what I'm writing. So for me, ledger paper is always something that's like a miracle. Miracle. No, is that the right word? Do you know what I mean? I can't read it so clearly. I always have to concentrate really well to read this old hand lettering. And I wanted to I wanted to bring my emotions with original ledger paper to my handmade ledger paper. The fact that I can't read it on, or hardly can read it on this original ledger paper, brought me to the idea to scribble around on my ledger paper here. You can bring as many details as you want to this ledger paper, like this little signature here on the bottom. And here we have the next letter for the giveaway and a cup of coffee for me in between. So I like to think about what is happening with this ephemera piece that I'm creating here, or which way has this ephemera piece, this ledger paper, gone through. I mean, all those situations that the people have this paper, they need it for their job or whatever to document different things. They fold it and give it to another person so that it, with the time, gets really ugly and really used, really vintage. I tried to imitate this look here by first folding the paper really extremely and randomly. Then I went over this edges with some Distress Oxide ink and this blending brush. If you don't have Distress Oxide ink and you want to have this effect, you can also fold the paper and then dip it into some coffee, or you can use watercolor or other inks for distressing your paper. I know that original ledger paper wouldn't have these things here that I'm trying to do now, because the people who had to document the things from their job, all those, I don't know the English words for that. Do you know what I mean? These were really important documents, and they wouldn't have those extreme damages and this extreme distressing. But I'm a junk journaler. I want to have an artsy piece for my junk journal later. I want to have a junk journal style ledger paper. And that was the reason why I tried to get this distressed effect way more here to my paper than it would be on an original ledger paper. I've just crumbled this up and went over this with my distressing brush. If you want to do that, make sure that you don't press too hard. You want this to be only on some of the areas, and you want to see the crumbles of this. You can also tear the paper at the edges like this. I think that could happen in reality as well. Just go over this with some distress ink or watercolor or whatever you use to distress your papers, and you will have a really cool look in the end. And of course, also this step you can do as extremely as you want. Here I'm showing you a really extreme way. I've just teared a bigger area here, distressed it on the one side, and then on the other side I've used some washi tape to glue that back together. So I want to have a whole sheet later, but I want to have this little damaged thing here. So here you can see the back side, and I'm just gluing some washi tape here that holds everything where I want to have it, so that's no problem. And that's also a great way to use up your ugly washi tapes. So in the next step, I've used some coffee to try to make some marks with my coffee here to my paper and to let the ink bleed a little bit. So this ink that I used for writing is water soluble as well, and I really like this effect when this gets a little bit messy. If you think, oh, I like this ledger paper that Louisa is making here right now, then I have a little surprise for you, because I've made a digital a digital download of this ledger paper as a freebie for you. So please check out the info box. There's the link to this freebie. You can download that, print that out at home, and use that for your own junk journal projects. I wish you a lot of fun with this free printable, and I hope you like it, of course. I'm always hoping that you like my stuff, but yeah, if you don't like it, don't download it. Okay, so here's the finished and dried result. Look how cool this ink has bleeded, and this effect is so cool. And what you can see here are some copies of my original. Please don't ask me why the copy is so yellow. And another one that I'm showing you in a second, this one here turned out really blue. I have some trouble with the order of my papers here. Sorry. This one here turned out really blue. I don't know why. I have two different settings to make a copy on my printer. And the one setting made it blue, the other one made it yellow. But yeah, after I was a little bit disappointed that it didn't turn out like my original paper, I was really happy, because I realized I have two different colors that match really well, because they are complementary colors. And when I print this in different sizes, it looks really interesting. And now I'm trying to make a little notepad out of this handmade ledger paper, I mean the copy. Perhaps you are asking, why is she using the copy and not the original one? There are several reasons. The first reason is, if I had used the copy, I wouldn't be able to make a freebie for you. I needed that to scan that, of course, and I needed the whole sheet for making the freebie for you. Another good thing about using a copy is that you still have the original piece that you can change later, that you can use for other projects. You can add some more mediums and that stuff. And the copy is now a new base to add some more mediums that would not work on the original. I mean, if we would add some white gesso, for example, to the original piece, and we have this distress oxide ink on top, then the gesso would turn brown with the time. And if I want to stay my gesso white, then I can use the copy and I will have no problems. I can use this as a brand new base for new ideas. The prompt list says not only ledger paper for today, but also fabric. So I've decided that I want to use some scraps of fabric and layer them in between of my paper sheets here. And I would like to make this not so regular. So I try to get different sizes of the fabric and the paper, and layering that in a way that you can see the other papers that are below the top papers. Do you know what I mean? I'm starting with the top one, and then I'm taking this fabric, layering that so that you can see the fabric, and the next paper, this yellow one, underneath. And so I'm going on with more layers until I have the size of this little notepad that I want to have for my journal. If you are a beginner, then I think it would be a good idea to start with the bottom layer of this notepad, because then it's easier to find the right size. I mean, I'm getting bigger with every layer that I'm adding here. If you do it the other way around, you can start with the biggest layer that fits into your journal, and you are sure that it will fit to your page, and then you can get smaller with the layers that you put on top. Sorry, I haven't thought about that when I started recording or when I was in this process, but I think you can imagine what I want to say. So if you are new to junk journaling, or even if you are not new to junk journaling, do it the way that's the easiest way for you. I mean, only because I'm showing this here in this way, that doesn't mean that it is the way for you. So try to figure out what works the best for you and then do it like you want it. Okay, so here you can see me arranging these papers a little bit, and I'm tearing here and there where it's too long so that I get the look of this little notepad that I want. And here is the paper that you have seen in the very beginning of this video. This is already dry, and now I want to include this into my notepad as well. This looks so different that I thought it could be a good idea to attach some of those papers here as well, because, yeah, my ledger paper is all the same. I mean, it's different sizes, it matches really well, but you can see that it's made out of the same base. And I wanted to have a little bit more interest when you flip this little notepad. Now I'm taking my glue stick and I'm gluing these papers together only on the very top here. Line them up so that they are all in the same line. Do you know what I mean? You can also rearrange those papers while you are gluing this. And in a second, I will take a white fabric, put that on top of this little notepad, and then I will sew over this so that my sewing holds this whole thing together really well. If you don't have a sewing machine or you don't want to sew, then I can't recommend to glue this with a glue stick. I don't know if you have very strong glue sticks there in your area where you come from, but especially this glue stick this is the Pritt glue stick. It is not very durable, and if you want to use this notepad, and especially when you want to write on the back side of those papers, it can happen that everything falls apart. So please, if you don't want to sew, use a really strong glue so that can't happen. In my case here, the glue has only the task to help me hold everything together so that I can bring it to my sewing machine in the order that I want it, and that the papers can't move around while I'm sewing over this. To make this look a little bit more interesting and give it this finished look at the top, I have just glued a little piece of fabric here. That's also a scrap piece of fabric. I think originally that was a pillowcase or something like that. And when I have sewn over this with my zigzag stitching, this whole thing looks like this. But it looks not very vintage, so let's take some Distress Oxide ink and make this a little bit more old looking. And in the same step, you can also go over the edges of your Tate. What is that? What is that? Tate. I think that's no word in English. You can also go over your teared papers and over the edges there and distress those a little bit. Here I'm also making this really extreme. I want to have this really in a used look, and of course you can decide if you want to do this more or less extreme. I know that some of those people out there, perhaps you as well, come from this card making craft section to junk journaling. I think in the last few months there were many people who said, oh, in the past I have made some cards and I've measured everything, I've glued everything really exactly, everything looks clean and beautiful in the end, and I have the biggest respect for all of those people who can do that. I would never be able to make a really cool, this cards, greeting cards or something like that. But it's the other way around as well. Some of you have told me that they made greeting cards in the past and they have a really big problem with grunging up projects for junk journals. Some of you fall in love with the junk journaling. I can totally understand that. And you want to try this grungy look and you have problems with that. I can understand that. What I'm trying to say here is that in the most cases, this grunge of a junk journal project is made out of different mediums, different layers in different steps. So if you see a finished junk journal project that you like, an ephemera piece, for example, then try to look really close and try to find out which mediums were used in this project. Perhaps you find a junk journal tutorial or an ephemera tutorial like this and you think, okay, she has used inks, she is stamping, she will use some white gesso in a second. So here you can see that. These are the different mediums I'm using. And then try to do not everything at the same time. If you are new and you don't know what you are doing, then choose one medium and try that out on different of your ephemera pieces and in your junk journal projects. If you think, okay, white gesso is too messy for me, then try another thing. If you like the mess on your table, then try to use white gesso in several other projects. Try out stamping. If you like stamping, do it on several other ephemera pieces and you will see that your own, some kind of handwriting comes to your ephemera pieces. Gold splatters like this were not imaginably for me in the past. I'm working with 49 Dragonflies during this December series and I love her stuff. I love her, Barbara. I love you. And she brought me to this gold splattering. Without her, I wouldn't have come to the idea to do that for my own projects. And that's what I want to say. If you see something that you like, try to find out how the person who has made this project has made this effect and try that out on your own projects and then you will be surprised and you will love it and do it for the rest of your life, or you will hate it and never do it again. But you have experienced this feeling and you have explored a new medium, perhaps, and then you can decide if you want to include that into your craft projects or not. So, yeah. Hopefully this philosophical speech was, had made some kind of sense to you. In the end, I have just glued this little piece of fabric here to the top, and then I've clamped this little clamp there to make it look a little bit more interesting and give it this final special thing. And now I can include this little thing here into one of my junk journals. I hope you like this. I hope you will follow this series. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.